There is that moment in life when you feel like everything is eluding you. You prayed, you wept, you pleaded, and nothing seems to budge. You see other individuals receiving answers, yet you're left in silence. You ask yourself, God, why not me? Why not now? The burden of waiting is crushing. The evenings are longer. The doubt grows louder. And it nearly makes you believe that God forgot your name. But what if I told you what appears to be silence is not absence, and what appears to be delay is not denial? What if the very waiting that's sucking the life out of you is actually the foundation where God is constructing you? You see, God's timing does not obey your clock. His timing does not conform to your feeling. His timing is impeccable. And if you can trust Him in waiting, you will discover that what He was doing the entire time was greater than answering your prayer. He was fashioning your heart, positioning your life, and putting the foundation in place for something far greater than you ever dreamed. Stick with me, because in this message, we're going to dissect how to trust God's timing when you feel forgotten, how to view delays as preparation, how to love alignment when it doesn't make sense, and how to let go of control when you want to force it. Because someone needs to hear this today. God has not forgotten you. He's preparing you. God's timing is seldom on our timetable, but always perfect. This is one of the most difficult realities for us to bear, because we are beings of time. We count our days in terms of clocks, calendars, deadlines, and schedules. We want them to go fast. We expect quick results. We pray, and with our hearts we put an unseen clock ticking down how long it is taking God to answer. When that clock ticks out, we lose faith in Him. But God is not held to our clocks and calendars. He is not racing to keep our schedule. He operates in His divine plan, and His timing is perfect, even when it is unbearable to us. Consider how frequently we get right now and best for me. We figure if it has not occurred yet, there must be something going wrong. But what if the wait is the thing that is protecting us? What if the waiting is God's protection from something we do not see? We can only see today, but God sees eternally. We know what we desire, but God knows what we require. His timing is not arbitrary, it's orchestrated. Each moment is integrated into His sovereign purpose, and nothing comes too late or too soon. We label it delay, but God labels it preparation. We label it waiting, but God labels it working. When we don't comprehend His timing, we become frustrated. We glance over at someone else's life and ask, why is it that their prayer is being answered and mine is not yet answered? We observe people moving forward, relationships developing, doors opening, and we say, God, what about me? And comparison keeps us from seeing that God is customizing each season for us. Because another door opened up for them doesn't mean your door should have. What appears to be God being late is really Him being intentional. He knows what you're ready for and what would destroy you if given too early. He loves you too much to give you blessings that you're not yet ready to handle. The issue is that God is eternal, but we're not. We want a breakthrough in 7 days, but God is building a faith that takes a lifetime. We desire a quick fix, but God desires a radical transformation. If He handed everything over to us right away, we would lose out on the deeper work He desires to accomplish in us. That's why His timing always seems so awkward. It stretches us. It teaches us to trust. It causes us to lean not on our own understanding, but on His promise. With every second we wait, it is an invitation to trust Him more. And the thing is this, God's perfect timing doesn't only deliver what we desire, it delivers it in a manner that brings glory to Him and grows us up. You can have the correct thing at the wrong moment and destroy yourself. You can have the right person, but if you're not ready in your heart, you'll mess up the relationship. You can be blessed, but if pride is still in control of you, the blessing will become a curse. God tarrieth not because He is punishing you, but because He is making you ready. His timing not only guarantees that you get the promise, but also that you're prepared to keep it, grow it, and steward it. This is why we need to be reminded each day, God's timing has little to do with our timetable, but everything to do with His. That means the waiting is not in vain. That means the silence is not emptiness. That means even when the clock is ticking louder in your mind, God is not late. He is on time. Delay is not denial. God's silence is not absence. There is a toxic myth the enemy whispers in times of seeming silence from God. He's forgotten you. He doesn't care. He's not going to come through. And in weakness, we begin to believe it. We begin to confuse silence with rejection. We assume if God has not yet answered, then perhaps he never will. Silence is not absence. Delay is not denial. God's timing and God's presence are not determined by the speed in which he responds to your prayers. Consider the case of Lazarus. When Jesus learned that his friend was ill, he did not go and heal him right away. He waited. When he came, 4 days had passed since Lazarus had died. To all the people around, it seemed like Jesus had arrived too late. It seemed like delay had become disaster, but Jesus never came late. He came right on time to show a greater miracle than they were able to comprehend. Had he come earlier, he would have healed Lazarus, but by coming later, he brought him back to life. What appeared to be silence was actually God paving the way for something better. That's how it is in your life. You might believe God's delay indicates that he isn't hearing, but actually, he is writing a larger tale than you requested. You might pray for healing, and he tarry because he wants to display his glory in an even greater way. You might pray for supply, and he waits because he's establishing a testimonial of his faithfulness through your life. You can ask for a door to be opened, and he closes it because he knows the wrong door would kill you. Delay is not denial. His not yet is as loving as his yes. But in waiting, we struggle with silence, and silence is difficult. It looks like heaven is shut. It looks like God is far away. But silence is where faith is grown. Silence compels you to depend on what God has spoken and not on how you are feeling. Silence compels you to walk on promises rather than feelings. Silence reminds you that faith is not demonstrated when God thunders out of the heavens, but when you have faith in him in quiet moments. Silence also calls us to become deeper in connection, because sometimes what God is cultivating in you while you're waiting is closeness with him. He desires you to search his face, not merely his hand. He desires you to know him, not merely employ him as a means to an end. His silence isn't absence, it's a chance to draw near, to pray more fervently, to listen more intently, to worship in the tension. If you could peek behind the curtain of your waiting, you would understand that God is at work in ways you can't even begin to think about. He is lining up people, events, and opportunities. He is closing the wrong doors so the right one will open at just the right time. He is bringing things together so perfectly that when it finally does happen, you'll know beyond a shadow of a doubt it was him. And when that time arrives, you'll be thanking him for all the delay. When we're discussing having faith in God's timing, one of the hardest things we have to do is let go of our own need for control. Deep inside, we desire to control the seasons of our lives. We desire to know when doors need to be opened, when our prayers need to be answered, when breakthroughs occur. We reassure ourselves that if we just got our way, we'd be happier, safer, more complete. But the reality is, control is an illusion. We don't have the power to direct outcomes. We can't make the sun rise quicker or cause the hands of time to move slower. We can't compel hearts to change or seasons to turn. But we hold on to the notion that we can, and when life doesn't go our way, we get frustrated, anxious, and bitter. Believing in God's timing requires relinquishing the illusion of control, and that his plan is greater, his ways are greater, and his wisdom is more than we can imagine. Surrender does not come easy to us. By nature, we fight it. We identify surrender as weakness. We believe that letting go of control is losing power, but it's actually in the surrender that peace is found. Holding on exhausts us. Attempting to do things in our time burns us out. But when we surrender at God's feet and say, "Your will, not mine," we move into rest. Real surrender isn't passive. It's an active decision to let go of the hold on our own expectations and to have complete faith in God's nature. It's trusting that even when we don't see what he's doing, he is still working for our good and his glory. Consider Abraham. God promised him a son, yet years went by and the promise was delayed. Abraham and Sarah, in their hurry, attempted to do things their own way by having a child through Hagar. That choice brought conflict and suffering that reverberated for centuries. Why? Because rather than waiting on God's timing, they imposed their own. How many times do we do the same? We pray, we wait, but then when God won't move on our timetable, we manipulate, we scheme, we push doors open that were never intended for us, and we reap the rewards later of behaving outside of God's timing. What Abraham's life teaches us is that God's promises always happen, but they happen in His manner, in His timing, and for His reason. Our part is not to control, but to obey, not to coerce, but to trust. Humility is also involved in surrendering to God's timing. It means we must acknowledge that we don't know it all, that we can't see it all, that our wisdom is finite. Pride says, I know best. I know when I need it. I know how it must happen. But humility says, God, you know better. You see what I don't see. You know what I don't know. Humility is where trust begins, because it's only when we acknowledge our own limitations that we can really lean upon God's omniscient wisdom. That's why surrender is not weakness, it's strength. It's deciding to put our feeble, short-sighted plans in the hands of the one who encompasses eternity. Another integral component of trusting God's timing is patience. Patience is not the capacity to wait, it's the attitude of your heart when you wait. You might wait and be full of anger, resentment, or frustration. That is not patience, that's endurance without peace. Real patience is waiting with hope, waiting with trust, waiting with expectation. It's saying, God, I don't see it yet, but I believe it's coming. I don't get it yet, but I think you're working. Patience is one of the most difficult fruits to grow because it calls upon us to battle against the flesh that demands instant gratification. We are living in a microwave generation with fast connectivity, instant feedback, and instant solutions. The world around us is yelling now, but God sometimes whispers, wait. Waiting is where patience is proven and tempered. Joseph's life is a perfect illustration. God presented him with visions of greatness, of reigning and leading. But between the time when those visions manifested and he achieved them, Joseph suffered betrayal, slavery, wrong accusations, and years in prison. From man's point of view, it seemed like a waste of time. But from the Lord's point of view, each setback was preparation. Had Joseph entered into leadership without the purifying of suffering, he wouldn't have possessed the heart to endure the promise. Patience is what makes God work on us while waiting, so that by the time the promise comes, we are prepared. Patience also changes our perspective. Rather than being consumed with the future, it helps us observe God's hand in the moment. Sometimes we're so concentrated on the next thing that we overlook what God is presently doing. We persist in saying, when, Lord? While He's asking, will you trust me today? Patience is deciding to trust God in the middle, not at the end. It's trusting that even as we wait, God's with us, His grace is holding us, and His Spirit is leading us. Another part of patience is not quitting. Too often, people give up right before the breakthrough. They pray month after month, year after year, but when they don't get their way, they quit. They abandon their dreams, their prayers, their faith. But patience speaks back, I will trust, I will believe, I will continue. Patience is not standing still. It's walking step by step, day by day with God, even when the path seems never-ending. Surrender and patience go together. You can't have real patience without surrender. For if we don't surrender, waiting is unbearable. And you can't really surrender without patience, for God's timing will always necessitate seasons of waiting. Together, they instruct us on how to trust completely. They change our hearts from anxious striving to restful confidence. Surrender instructs us to let go of our plans, and patience instructs us to trust in His. Surrender reminds us that God is sovereign, and patience reminds us that His timing is perfect. Both remind us of the overarching principle that God is faithful. He cannot lie. He cannot fail. He cannot leave His children behind. If He promised it, He will do it. If He said it, it is going to happen. But in His timing, not ours. Looking at trusting God's timing, one of the greatest things we learn is delays are not denials. Because something hasn't happened yet doesn't mean God has forgotten you. And it doesn't mean God has shut the door forever. Actually, some of the most profound blessings of God are packaged in seasons of waiting that challenge our faith test our patience, and show us what we really believe about Him. Delays are usually the proving grounds of faith, the arena in which God removes self-sufficiency and teaches us to live by His mighty power. Too frequently, when God's promises become slow in coming, we take it that He is saying no, whereas actually He is perhaps just saying, not yet. The distinction is significant. A no closes the door, whereas a not yet sets us up for something better. The problem is figuring out how to recognize the distinction and believe the Father who loves us, that He knows the exact time for each breakthrough. If you look at the account of Lazarus, you find this to be true. Jesus was told that his close friend was ill. Yet instead of going immediately to cure him, He tarried. In the human perception, the delay was unkind. Lazarus passed away, his sisters wept, and it seemed that hope had died. But when Jesus did come, He didn't go and heal a man that was ill. He raised up one who was dead. The delay was not of neglect, but of revelation. God let time elapse so that His glory might be unveiled in an even more majestic manner. We are all living in that same tension. We pray for something, but rather than getting instant answers, God lets there be delays, not because He has forgotten us, but because He wants to demonstrate His power in ways we cannot even dream. Delays uncover our hearts. They show us whether we are pursuing God's hand or His heart. Do we only love Him when He gives us what we desire on our schedule? Or do we believe Him when it appears He's quiet? Waiting has the ability to cleanse our motives. For when all the thrill wears off and the reply doesn't immediately come, we're left with a single question: do I still trust that He is good? When we can say yes in the quietness, when we can hold on to His promises in the wait, that's when we really start to grow. Delays also foster strength. You see, immediate answers don't mold us as waiting does. A seed does not become a tree overnight. It requires time, storms, and seasons. The roots must go deep before the branches can go wide. Similarly, God uses waiting to build spiritual roots strong. God uses waiting to build perseverance, endurance, and trust. Those things cannot be microwaved. They are tempered in the flame of waiting. Each second you remain in delay is not a waste. It's preparation. God is developing in you the strength needed to manage the blessing when it arrives. If He granted you the promise prematurely, it could overwhelm you rather than bless you. A further aspect of trusting God's timing is seeing divine alignment. God isn't merely at work in your life. He is conducting an enormous symphony of people, events, and circumstance. What seems like a delay in your life could be God lining up someone else, preparing a position, opening a door, or rearranging an entire season so that when it all comes together, His plan works out with precision. Joseph's story from the pit to the palace is a case in point. It was not only about Joseph, it was about Egypt, about nations being preserved amid famine, about his brothers being corrected, about a family being reunited. The waiting and suffering years were not delays for Joseph. Those were divine alignments for an altogether larger picture. When you're caught in the middle of a wait, it feels like God left you behind, but divine alignment will remind you that He is accomplishing 1,000 things out of sight. You're praying for a job, and God is making moves in a company to produce the position He created for you. You might be asking for a spouse while God is molding both your heart and theirs, so that when you get together, it's not a mess, but a divine meeting. You might be waiting for healing, while God is healing not just your body, but preparing your testimony to give hope to others. Divine timing means that God is never behind schedule. He is always right on time, since He operates not on your calendar, but on the plan of eternity. Delay helps us learn dependence. When answers are immediate, we tend to pat ourselves on the back or think it was our doing that caused things to happen. But when the delay extends, when waiting prolongs, we are compelled to lean on God. We're compelled to pray more intently, believe more deeply, and walk closer. We discover that He isn't merely the provider of blessings. He is the blessing. Delays remove idols, those things we pin our security on, and challenge us to remember that our sole true source is God Himself. Divine alignment also shows us that God's plan is multi-layered. We only view the surface, while God sees the beginning, middle, and end. He's aware of the correct time for each thing, and his alignment makes sure that no detail escapes. Consider the way Jesus was born in Bethlehem. That took an empire census, a trip, an inn being full, and 1,000 other details happening precisely as they did. None of it was an accident. Divine alignment. If God can arrange the birth of his son in such specificity, cannot he bring the circumstances of your life into alignment? Delays coupled with divine alignment teach us that God is interested not only in the destination, but in the journey as well. He employs delays to form us and alignment to place us, so that when we enter the promise at last, we are ready and in the right place at the right moment. Consider the tragedy of the right blessing at the wrong moment, or in the right place with the wrong heart. God shields us from that by his timing. Delays make sure we are ready. Alignment makes sure the promise fits into his bigger picture. That's why we need to change our mindset. Rather than thinking delays are punishment, we need to realize they are preparation. Rather than thinking waiting is time wasted, we need to think of it as training by God. And rather than questioning God in the quiet, we need to be reminded that he is aligning the invisible. Trusting God's timing in delay and alignment takes more than what we can see. It takes us to believe that he is sovereign and good, that he knows what we need, and that his timing, although not like ours, is perfect in every aspect. We've walked through the frustration of waiting, the truth that delay is not denial, the reality that silence doesn't mean God is absent, the lessons Joseph's life teaches us, the power of divine alignment, and the need to surrender control when your hands itch to force the outcome. Every part of the waiting season is purposeful. Every delay has meaning. Every silent stretch is a chance for your roots to go deeper. God's timing is not haphazard, it's strategic. Not arbitrary, it's deliberate. Not behind schedule, it's on schedule. You might not see it yet, but he is orchestrating every detail, sanctifying your heart and guarding your destiny. Don't get ahead of him. Don't hate the waiting. Don't confuse his silence with indifference. Because when the door creaks open, when the promise materializes, when the time is here, you'll recognize beyond any shadow of a doubt, it could only be God, undefined. So wait, have faith in his timing. He's never early, never late, right on time. And when it finally does occur, you'll understand why you waited.